Hey guys, here is my first Flicks episode, which is a book and movie review that I've been promising since the end of Booktubeathon, and it is on Taliban Shuffle, Strange Days in Afghanistan and Pakistan by Kim Barker. That is the book, and the movie is Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, which is new this year and starred Tina Fey. And if you saw my Booktubeathon wrap-up, then you know that I have thoughts on this book. I have so many thoughts, and I'm just gonna take a breath, and I'm gonna collect myself, and I'm just gonna go. I wanted to read this book because I chose it for my political memoir portion of my Pop Sugar Challenge. And it also counts as a book that'll be a movie this year if I can't get to A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. You double up sometimes, it happens. This was, again, my book to movie challenge in the Booktubeathon. And if you are reading this for a political memoir reason, because this book on the back is billed as a war reporter's take on the conflict in Afghanistan and Pakistan, when we were considering that the forgotten war because Iraq was more important at the time. You are sadly mistaken. There is definitely political commentary in here. There are definitely political aspects, but if you are reading this because you want to hear about her thoughts on the conflict more than you want to hear about her thoughts on her own personal journey as a war correspondent, don't read this. Don't do it. Because this was not what I expected this book to be, and mostly in negative ways. Originally reading this book, I was insanely turned off by her writing style. There is an amount of just nasty sarcasm and just generalities, what felt at times bordering at just mindless privilege, not even bordering, mindless privilege and stereotypes, and just, but about everybody, about everything, and just, it was just so in your face when I started this that I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know if I wanted to finish the book. I mean, it is really short, and I needed it for Booktubeathon. I was reading it on the last day, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go for it and see what happens. And while towards the end of the book, Kim Barker definitely addresses her writing style and the way that she thinks about things, she also just kind of lets a lot of it go as fact. And it was just one of these things where it made her accounts of certain things, I completely believe that it was the truth 100%, because she doesn't hold anything back and she's very in your face and very blunt, but at the same time with telling about other things, I was like, I don't know how I can believe you, because if this is how you talk about things, then wow, like, poof. But at other points it made the narrative very enjoyable because she is just so self-attacking, and just going for it. So, and some really strange things did happen to her. So it was just like this wild ride of every time you flip the page, you didn't know if I was gonna laugh or feel like I'd been slapped or just be totally shocked, or I don't know. I wouldn't say that it was a pleasant experience, but I mean, it was definitely something. I think though in the end what really bugged me, and I mean this isn't really a spoiler per se, is just that in the end she just gets tired, and there's no real personal arc that I saw for this. It just seems like it just stops, and I can't really get into that per se without like spoiling a big thing in this, but the whole point is that to be a war correspondent, you have to be an adrenaline junkie, and this can take over your life and it can literally get you killed, and you have to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. And even if you start out that way, you might not end that way because of the toll that it has on you. And while I felt like that was definitely being talked about in this book, in the end, she didn't really seem to have a commentary on it. Her cynicism came through, and she just kind of stops with the illusion at the end that in about another 10 years, like, it doesn't matter what happens because this is just going to happen all over again. And none of that is necessarily wrong, but in terms of a resolution, it just kind of felt like, oh, I guess you're just done now. Which I guess is okay for her, but like, whatever. Anyways, that is the book. Then you watch the movie Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, which starts out saying based on a true story. And I really was wondering going into the movie, how do you make a concise, consistent movie with a plot out of this book, which jumps around, talks about a whole bunch of different things, leaves you confused, references things that happened in the past that she never tells you about. Ugh, whatever. I love Tina Fey. Don't get me wrong. I did not know Martin Freeman was in the movie, but was completely psyched when he showed up. And movies have to adapt the source material. I understand this. There's no way you could fit all this information into a movie. I get that. I don't understand why they would even reference Taliban Shuffle as something that this movie is based on. Because aside from Kim Barker having the same name and some of the events being taken straight from this book, the plot of the movie is so completely different. And it makes the character of Kim Barker into somebody who, from this book, she never was. And it downplays the cynicism, it plays up her cluelessness, which I'm sure definitely happened, but it makes, I mean, you have to love Tina Fey, and if it is to be considered a strength of Taliban Shuffle, you do not necessarily love Kim Barker, and I think that you're not necessarily completely supposed to. I think that it's a story of how, you know, this kind of a job can really just mash you up inside. But that's not what happens to Tina Fey's Kim Barker. She gets stronger, she gets a love interest, and she becomes this, you know, more of a better person than other war correspondents, and, you know, in the end she saves the day. That doesn't happen in the book. If you can say anything about Kim Barker from Taliban Shuffle, the real Kim Barker, it's that what she does for herself to a fault, and sometimes for the good and sometimes for the bad. Like romantic relationships. She basically says, like, I couldn't do this while I was over there. This was all a mess. Everything that I did ended up badly. And that's not what happens in the movie. Like, they get... Why was it so important to give her a functioning love interest that basically spurs the whole plot of the movie, none of which happens in the book, which is sitting over there, and which is why I keep motioning like this. And then, not only that, but like, the love interest basically sleeps with her while she's been drinking until she's like, okay, I actually like you, after talking to you at breakfast one time after we've had sex like 5 times. Ugh. I have a lot of thoughts, and I think that if I hadn't read the book, I wouldn't be so angry. I think that the movie Whiskey Tango Foxtrot holds on to a lot of the core ideas that are in Taliban Shuffle. I think that it's definitely more aware of itself. Like at one point when Tina Fey is talking about why she became a war correspondent, she's basically saying, you know, I just had to get out of my job, blah, 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 and one of the women from Afghanistan who's sitting there with her goes, wow, that is one of the most American white lady things I've ever heard. And I was like, one of these screenwriters is paying attention. But it's just, aside from little moments like that, and I mean, there are parts in the movie that really capture the seriousness of what this job is and the danger and the effect. So I'm not saying that at all. I think that the movie tried to hold on to those themes, but in terms of actual plot, what they did with the characters, it's just a mess. And if you watch Whiskey Tango Foxtrot and then go back to read Taliban Shuffle, talk about having serious, massive whiplash. You will be so shocked to go backwards like that. So, ugh, I have a lot of feelings, okay? I had a ridiculous reading experience reading Taliban Shuffle and then watching this like altruistic, happy, optimistic-ish movie and wanting to love Tina Fey, but having read this book, it's just nuts. It's just nuts. So that is how I feel about that. As much as I can be concise, I know that this is really long at this point, but all of that had to be said and more should be said, but I feel like I should stop now. So that is my book and movie review of Taliban Shuffle and Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. And yeah, I don't know where I'm supposed to leave you with that. If you feel like the movie is something that you're interested in, don't think that it's based on a true story all that much, and don't read the book. You might like the movie. I might have liked the movie if I had thought of it as fiction and not read this. Tina Fey is still awesome. And that's all I have for you guys. I'm gonna go now. Bye.